Within the Filipino community, mental health has received limited attention due to competing priorities, stigma, and limited awareness. Thousands of people die by suicide every year, but because of our cultural values, talking about suicide has become so incredibly taboo and misunderstood. As someone who had suicidal thoughts in the past and had trouble navigating them, I think it's important to create safe spaces where we can unpack the myths behind suicidal thoughts and how to support those around us who may be experiencing this. The first myth we'll be talking about today is this: talking about suicide will encourage suicidal attempts. In fact, being open to talking about suicide allows us to communicate, practice holding space for each other with empathy and compassion, and destigmatize issues surrounding mental health. The first step in encouraging a person with thoughts of suicide to live comes from talking about those feelings. As someone who had to navigate these thoughts, I found that speaking to someone you can trust helped me to understand where the feeling was coming from, and sometimes even help diminish some of the fears. Suicidal thoughts are not just, I want to die. They're also, there is no future I want to live in, no one cares if I'm alive, I feel trapped and I need a way out, I need an escape from this cycle of negative thoughts, or even life is pointless right now. A simple question, asking the person if they're okay and would like to talk about it, is always a good way to start this conversation. However, talking about suicide should be carefully managed. This brings us to myth number 2, which is that people who talk about suicide never attempt to die by suicide. It's easy to brush off people who express suicidal thoughts as selfish, a burden, attention-seeking, and someone with empty threats. But we need to remember that talking about suicide can be a plea for help, and it can be a late sign in the progression towards a suicide attempt. If people around you have expressed suicidal thoughts, remember what they say on airplanes. You have to put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. Make sure you have the emotional capacity to hold space for them. Then you can encourage them to talk further and determine whether they need to find appropriate counseling assistance. You can ask if the person is thinking about making a suicide attempt or if the person has a plan. Think about the completeness of the plan and how dangerous it is. Do not trivialize plans that seem less complete or less dangerous. All suicidal intentions are serious and must be acknowledged as such. Finally, encourage the person to develop a personal safety plan. This can include spending time with others and having constant check-ins with people they trust in for the future. The final myth we are going to debunk today is that once a person is intent on suicide, there's no way of stopping them. Absolutely not. Suicide can be prevented. People can be helped, and there is hope. Suicidal thoughts are just a symptom, and like any other symptom, they can be treated and can improve over time. It's just as important to acknowledge, as someone who is providing emotional support, that no matter how well-intentioned, alert, and diligent people's efforts may be, there is no way of preventing all suicides from occurring.